Welcome aboard the Blind Date. We're going to do some teak work today, some varnish of some handrails on the deck. I've had the boat about 18 years, and when I first got the boat I paid somebody to do the woodwork, and there's not a lot of woodwork on the deck, but it's still about 600 bucks each time you have it done. You should have it done at least probably twice a year. Now that I do it myself, I do it more than twice a year. But I just decided that I would save that money, and of course I would just spend that money somewhere else on the boat. So let's get right to it. I've used different varnish over the years. Right now I'm using Epiphanes. I have no relationship with them, but that's what I'm using right now, and I thin it out with their product for thinning. And in terms of how much thinner I put in there, I would say to volume of varnish probably 20% of the thinner. I use some kind of painter's tape. This is 3M, but any painter's tape will do. I usually use a narrower painter's tape, but this is what I have right now. And the key to this is that you don't want to leave it on there too long, not more than a couple of days, because then when you do get it off, it'll leave adhesive, and you'll have to get that off either with some kind of adhesive remover, or you can use wax to get it off. But plus it can just kind of be hard to get off in one piece, so you end up with little tiny pieces. So I try to leave it on there no more than just a few days to get all the coats on that I want. For what I'm doing right now, the handrails, I'm going to be using 80 weight or 80 grade sandpaper and 400. Those are the two I'm going to be using. I use a foam brush. I don't think very many people do use a foam brush. Most people use some kind of bristle brush. I've done different things over the years, and I really can't even give you a good explanation as to why I ended up doing this. One might be that when you use some sort of bristle brush, then you need to clean it. You need to clean it with some kind of thinner or mineral spirits or whatever. So, and then that's kind of a mess, and of course that's toxic. And with this foam brush I just throw it away, so I use a foam brush and it works pretty well for me. I've got some brown paper that, in addition to taping, I'm going to put this around the area so I can more easily vacuum up the sanding residue. And then I have a face mask, just a dust mask for the sanding. So we'll go out on deck now. This pinstripe's in really good shape, but I'm gonna do that as soon as I get the handrails done. The handrails were kind of a unique problem. They've been covered, and every time I would put varnish on some of this other wood, I would put it on the handrail too, and it ended up getting too thick. So I uncovered it. It's been uncovered for about a month, and I'm just trying to get the sun to work some of the thick varnish off. So I'm going to sand it and then put a coat or two on, probably just 2 coats. And then there is a varnish on the companionway. These 3 slats make up the closure of the companionway. Only one of them is teak. And then you have the teak there on that rail that the lock attaches to. So we'll get started on the rail. Okay, so that's the first coat, and I'm put another 2 coats on. Alright, we're going to get some more woodwork done. We're going to work on this trim right here. We're going to tape it up and then sand it and then varnish it. So the most important thing when taping this trim is to give some space between the wood and the fiberglass. If you tape and overlay the wood, when you bring the tape off or take the tape off, you'll end up pulling some of the varnish up. So that's the most difficult thing, is you don't want too much space between the wood and the fiberglass, because then when you put the varnish down, you'll end up with a lot of varnish on the fiberglass. But if you get the tape on the wood or too close to the wood, when you take the tape off, you'll end up pulling some of the varnish off. So let's get started. Okay, now I've got the 400 weight sandpaper, and so I'll do a light sand before I put the varnish on. Okay, so I sanded it with 100 weight sandpaper, or 100 grade sandpaper, and then 400 grade sandpaper, and I've wiped down the area, got all the dust up, not only off the wood but the area around that. There's not a lot of wind, but if there was some wind, it would kind of blow some of that dust on there after we got the varnish on, which we obviously don't want. This is actually the easiest part, I think. It'll take me maybe 5 minutes per side. I've taped the other side, sanded the other side just like this one. So I'll start down on this end and get this done. Alright, so got the first coat on, and I'll put probably 3 more coats on, and I'll sand with 400 weight sandpaper, or grade, I never know which term to use, between each coat of varnish. Really a light sand. And I did the other side as well. Alright, just put another coat of varnish on, and I waited about 24 hours between each coat of varnish, and then I sand it with 400 weight sandpaper. But so I put the last coat of varnish on for the trim, and I'll put a couple more coats on for the companionway hatch and for the piece that goes on top of the hatch. Don't know what that's called. Okay, I'll finish with the teak work. I put 4 coats on the trim. On both sides. Cockpit table's looking pretty good. Transom seat.